Jake Morrison opened his eyes slowly. The cold sleep chamber made a soft hiss as it opened. His body felt stiff and strange after sleeping for so long. 1,000,000 years. He could hardly believe it. The ship's computer had woken him up because they had reached their destination. He sat up carefully and looked around the medical bay. Other chambers were opening too. His crew was waking up from their long sleep. Dr. Lisa Carter coughed as she climbed out of her pod. Commander Alex Rodriguez stretched his arms and yawned. They had all been asleep for the same amount of time. "Status report," Jake said to the ship's computer. "Welcome back, Captain Morrison. We have arrived at the outer edge of the galaxy. All systems are working well. Long-range sensors show many new things." Jake walked to the bridge. His legs felt weak at first, but he got stronger with each step. The other crew members followed him. They all wanted to see what had happened while they slept. The main screen turned on and showed them space. But this was not the empty space they remembered. Bright lights filled the darkness. Ships moved between the stars like tiny fireflies. Huge stations floated around planets that used to be dead rocks. "This is impossible," whispered Dr. Lisa Carter. She was the team's expert on alien life. "These worlds were empty when we left. Nothing lived on them." Alex Rodriguez checked the navigation computer. "We are in the right place. These are the same star systems we left behind, but now they are full of cities and ships." Jake felt confused and excited at the same time. His people had left Earth long ago because they needed to find new homes. They had spent thousands of years traveling between the stars, planting life on empty worlds. But those projects would take millions of years to grow into real civilizations. They had decided to sleep through the waiting time. "Show me the closest inhabited world," Jake told the computer. The screen changed to show a planet covered in green and blue. Cities sparkled on the night side like jewels. Ships came and went from huge spaceports. The planet looked beautiful and alive. "Scan for life signs," Lisa said. The computer worked for several minutes. Then it showed them the results. Jake's mouth fell open. The planet had billions of creatures living on it. But these were not the tiny microbes they had planted. These were big, smart beings who built cities and flew in space. "Look at this," Alex said, pointing at the screen. "Those ships are using nuclear engines. These creatures know advanced science." Lisa studied the scan results. "Captain, these life forms look familiar. Their DNA patterns match species from our old Earth database." Jake felt a chill run down his back. "What do you mean?" "These creatures evolved from Earth animals. Look here, this species has the same genetic base as Earth reptiles, and this one comes from Earth mammals, but they have been changed and improved." Dr. Karen White joined them on the bridge. She was their expert on ancient history and archaeology. "Captain, I'm getting strange readings from the planet's surface. There are structures down there that look very old, much older than these current cities." "Show me," Jake said. The screen displayed images of ruins hidden in forests and deserts. Karen pointed to various features. "These building styles match human architecture from our early colony period. See those support beams in that door design? We built structures just like this on dozens of worlds." Jake felt more confused. "Are you saying humans lived on that planet before?" "Yes, sir. But according to our records, we never established a permanent colony there. We just seeded it with basic life forms and left." Alex was monitoring radio signals from the planet. "Captain, I'm picking up their communications. Let me try to translate them." The ship's computer worked to decode the alien languages. After an hour, words began to appear on the screen. Jake read them with growing amazement. The messages talked about trade between different star systems. They discussed scientific discoveries and political meetings. These creatures had built a huge civilization that connected many worlds. They had governments, schools, and businesses just like humans used to have. But one thing bothered Jake. In all their communications, these aliens never mentioned humans. They talked about their history as if they had always existed. They claimed their worlds had always been their homes. "This doesn't make sense," Lisa said. "Our genetic scans prove these species came from Earth life. We have records of seeding these worlds, but they act like they evolved naturally. Karen was studying more archaeological data. Captain, I found something important. There are human artifacts on dozens of worlds in this sector. Ancient bases, terraforming equipment, and genetic laboratories. But the current inhabitants seem to ignore them completely. Jake ordered his crew to scan other star systems. The results were the same everywhere. Worlds that humans had prepared for life were now home to advanced civilizations. Species that came from Earth DNA had built cities, governments, and space fleets. But none of them seemed to remember where they really came from. It's like they forgot about us, Alex said quietly. Jake stood at the window and looked out at the busy star system. Somewhere out there, creatures that his people had created were living their lives. They had families and dreams and hopes for the future. But they had no idea that humans had made their existence possible. Sir, Lisa said, what should we do? These are our children in a way. We planted the seeds that grew into their civilizations. Jake didn't answer right away. This situation was more complex than anything they had planned for. His people had expected to wake up and find empty worlds ready for human colonies. Instead, they found a galaxy full of life that had forgotten its creators. We need more information, he finally said. Monitor their communications. Study their technology. Learn everything we can about what happened while we slept. The crew worked for days, gathering data about this new galactic civilization. What they learned would change everything they thought they knew about their place in the universe. Admiral Ben Harris looked at the report spread across his desk. 3 weeks had passed since humanity woke up from their million-year sleep. What they discovered made him feel worried and amazed at the same time. Show me the big picture, he said to Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell. Sarah pressed some buttons and a huge map appeared in the air above the table. Thousands of star systems glowed with different colors. Lines connected them like a giant web. This is the Zephyrian Collective, Sarah explained. They control about 60% of the galaxy. They have member species from over 300 different worlds. Ben studied the map carefully. The collective was enormous. It stretched across most of the galaxy's spiral arms. Their capital was built around a star that used to be called Proxima Centauri. Now the aliens called it SciFiPrime. What do we know about their government? Ben asked. Dr. Paul Anderson stepped forward. He had been studying the aliens' culture and history. They claim to be the galaxy's first advanced civilization. According to their records, they evolved naturally on their home planet about 2 million years ago. Ben frowned. But our records show that world was empty when we seeded it. We planted the basic life forms that grew into their species. That's correct, sir. But they have a completely different version of history. They say they discovered space travel on their own. Then they found empty worlds and helped primitive life forms become intelligent. Sarah added more information. They have a whole department called the Galactic Development Authority. They take credit for guiding the evolution of every species in their collective. Ben felt angry. These creatures were taking credit for humanity's work. His people had spent thousands of years carefully designing life forms for specific worlds. They had built the machines that changed dead planets into living worlds. They had created the genetic codes that allowed different species to become intelligent. Do they know the truth? Ben asked. Paul shook his head. I don't think so, sir. Their scientists have developed complex theories to explain away any evidence of human involvement. When they find our old bases or equipment, they call them natural phenomena or ancient mysteries. Commander Rachel Davis entered the room. She had just returned from a secret mission to observe the collective's capital system. Admiral, you need to see this. She activated a recording device. Images of a massive ring-shaped structure appeared on the screen. The ring was so big that it circled an entire star. Billions of creatures lived on its surface. This is their capital, Rachel said. They call it the First Ring. Over 5 trillion beings live there. They represent hundreds of different species, but they all follow Zephyrian leadership. Ben watched ships coming and going from the ring. The traffic was incredible. Thousands of vessels moved through space like a river of metal and light. Their technology is impressive, Rachel continued. But it's all based on principles that humans discovered long ago. They've just forgotten where those ideas came from. Dr. Maria Johnson joined the meeting. She was humanities expert on genetics and evolution. Admiral, I've been analyzing DNA samples that Rachel collected. Every single species in the collective shows signs of artificial enhancement. She displayed genetic charts on the screen. Look at these patterns. This species has modifications that help them survive on high-gravity worlds. This one has been adapted for underwater environments. This one can process radiation that would kill most life forms. Ben studied the charts. These modifications, they match our old terraforming protocols exactly. Maria finished. These species weren't guided by Zephyrian science. They were created by human genetic engineering. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. The collective wasn't just living in worlds that humans had prepared. They were literally made from human designs, living in cities built with human knowledge, using technology based on human discoveries. Sarah broke the silence. Admiral, there's something else. I've been monitoring their communication networks. Any scientist who suggests that an elder race might have existed gets in serious trouble. What kind of trouble? Ben asked. Career destruction, loss of research funding. Sometimes they just disappear from public records entirely. There's a pattern of suppression that goes back thousands of years. Paul nodded. I've seen the same thing in their historical records. Whenever evidence of human civilization surfaces, it gets explained away or simply vanishes from their databases. Rachel added her observations. During my time near their capital, I listened to their news broadcasts. Several archaeological teams have found human ruins recently, but their government immediately classified the sites as sensitive research areas and banned public access. Ben felt a cold anger growing in his chest. Are you telling me they're deliberately hiding evidence of our existence? It looks that way, sir, Sarah said. There's an organization called the Historical Compliance Bureau. They monitor scientific research across the entire collective. Their job seems to be making sure that no evidence of a precursor race ever becomes widely known. Maria pulled up more genetic data. Admiral, I've also discovered something disturbing. Some of the outer species, the ones not fully integrated into the collective, still have cultural memories of their creators. What kind of memories? Religious stories about the builders who gave them life. Legends about the first ones who prepared the worlds for habitation. But whenever collective scientists encounter these stories, they're dismissed as primitive mythology. Ben walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, trillions of beings lived their lives in ignorance of the truth. They had built a magnificent civilization, but it was founded on lies and forgotten history. How many species are we talking about? He asked. In the collective alone, over 400 intelligent species across 8,000 star systems, Paul replied. But there are also independent civilizations. Some small empires, some single-world governments. In total, we estimate about 600 species exist in this part of the galaxy. And all of them descended from life forms we planted? Every single one shows clear signs of human genetic engineering. Even the ones that evolved naturally afterward still carry the basic modifications we made to their ancestor species. Ben made his decision. I want detailed intelligence on the Historical Compliance Bureau. Find out who runs it, how they operate, and what they know about us. Also locate any remaining resistance groups who might be preserving the truth. Sarah nodded. Yes, sir. What about direct contact? Not yet. We need to understand the situation completely before we reveal ourselves. If there's an active conspiracy to hide human involvement in galactic history, we need to know why. As his staff prepared to leave, Ben called after them. One more thing. Start preparing contingency plans. If these civilizations refuse to acknowledge their true origins, we may need to remind them who their parents really are. The room emptied, leaving Ben alone with his thoughts. Outside the window, alien ships moved between the stars that humanity had once called home. The children had grown up and forgotten their parents. Soon they would learn that the elders had returned. Dr. Maria Johnson stared at her computer screen in disbelief. The message was short but clear. Research proposal rejected. Topic classified as historically inaccurate. Further inquiry discouraged. She had spent 2 months carefully preparing fake credentials as a Zephyrian scientist. Using these false documents, she submitted archaeological evidence about human ruins to the collective's scientific council. The evidence was real and undeniable. Ancient human tools, clearly marked construction materials, and genetic samples that proved human involvement in planetary development. All of it had been rejected without explanation. They didn't even look at the data properly, she told Colonel Tim Baker over their secure communication link. The rejection came back in less than 24 hours. No peer review, no scientific analysis, just a flat denial. Tim was hidden on a space station in the Outer Rim, coordinating intelligence operations. Maria, we're seeing the same pattern everywhere. Every piece of evidence we submit gets buried immediately. Dr. Amy Roberts joined their conversation from her position near the collective capital. It's worse than burial. I submitted data about human DNA markers in Zephyrian genetic databases. Not only was it rejected, but the scientist I impersonated has been transferred to a research station in an empty star system. Maria felt frustrated and angry. These were not the actions of ignorant beings who simply didn't understand the evidence. This was deliberate suppression of the truth. There's something else, Amy continued. I managed to access employment records for the Scientific Council. Over the past century, hundreds of researchers have been reassigned, demoted, or simply vanished after submitting research about elder civilizations or precursor species. Tim had been investigating the political structure of the collective. I found the organization responsible. It's called the Historical Compliance Bureau. They have offices on every major world and agents embedded in universities, research institutes, and even religious organizations. What's their official purpose? Maria asked. Maintaining historical accuracy and preventing the spread of dangerous misinformation. But their real job seems to be erasing any evidence that contradicts the official version of galactic history. Amy had been trying to contact scientists who might be sympathetic to the truth. I found something interesting. There are researchers who've been quietly preserving evidence for generations. They work in secret, hiding artifacts and protecting data from the Bureau. Maria's computer chimed with an incoming message. She read it quickly, then felt her blood turn cold. The fake identity I used has been flagged for investigation. They're sending agents to find this non-existent scientist. That's impossible, Tim said. We created perfect backgrounds for all our false identities. Apparently not perfect enough. They have resources we didn't expect. Captain Danny Miller interrupted their conversation with urgent news. Team, we have a problem. 3 of our undercover agents have gone missing. They were all working on different research projects in different star systems. Maria felt a chill of fear. Missing how? They failed to report in yesterday. When I checked their last known locations, local authorities said they never existed. No employment records, no housing assignments, no identification documents. It's like they were never there. Amy's voice became tense. That's not possible. I helped create those cover identities myself. The Historical Compliance Bureau has technology that can erase people from records, Tim said grimly. And apparently, they're willing to use it on anyone who gets too close to the truth. Dr. Karen White contacted them from her position monitoring alien archaeological sites. I have more bad news. Remember the human ruins we were tracking on the planet Kepler 442b? The entire site has been strip-mined. They removed every trace of human architecture and claimed they were extracting rare minerals. What about the other sites? Maria asked. Same story. In the past month, 12 different human archaeological sites have been destroyed or made inaccessible. They're not just suppressing research anymore. They're eliminating the evidence itself. Maria realized the scope of what they were facing. This isn't accidental ignorance. The collective leadership knows the truth about human involvement in galactic history. They're actively working to hide it. Tim had been analyzing Bureau communication patterns. I intercepted some of their internal messages. They know about the elder race and they consider human artifacts to be threats to social stability. Social stability? Amy asked. Think about it. The entire collective is built on the idea that the Zephyrians are the galaxy's first and most advanced civilization. If people learned that humans created most of the member species and prepared their worlds for habitation, the Zephyrian government would lose its authority. Captain Danny was monitoring multiple operations across the galaxy. We need to extract our remaining agents before the Bureau finds them. They're getting better at identifying our people. Maria made a decision. I'm going to try a different approach. Instead of working through official channels, I'll contact the underground resistance directly. That's dangerous, Tim warned. If the Bureau has infiltrated the resistance, you'll be walking into a trap. We don't have a choice. Subtle methods aren't working. The Bureau is too powerful and too well organized. Amy had been researching resistance activities. I found a pattern in their communications. They use old human mathematical sequences as identification codes. They might be more friendly to humans than to fake alien researchers. Maria began preparing for her mission. She would reveal her true identity to resistance scientists and hope they would accept help from humanity itself. Dr. Paul Anderson interrupted their planning with disturbing news. Team, I've been analyzing collective media broadcasts. They're starting a public education campaign about the dangers of historical revisionism and anti-scientific mythology. What kind of campaign? Maria asked. They're teaching children that stories about elder races or creator beings are dangerous fantasies that undermine scientific thinking. They're also offering rewards for reporting anyone who spreads such ideas. Tim felt sick. They're turning the entire population into informants against the truth. Karen added more troubling information. The campaign isn't limited to education. They're also funding entertainment programs that portray believers in elder races as mentally unstable or socially dangerous. Maria realized that humanity was facing more than just scientific suppression. The collective was waging a cultural war against the very concept of their existence. How many people know the real truth? She asked. Amy had been studying resistance communications. Based on their message patterns, maybe a few thousand scientists across the entire galaxy. They're vastly outnumbered by Bureau agents and loyalist citizens, Danny reported from his intelligence network. The situation is getting worse. The Bureau is increasing security around all archaeological sites. They're also expanding their monitoring of academic communications. Maria stood up and looked out at the stars. Somewhere in that vast darkness, a small group of brave scientists was fighting to preserve the truth about galactic history. They were humanity's only allies in a galaxy that had forgotten its creators. We need to make contact with the resistance, she said firmly. Even if it's dangerous, they're the only ones who might listen to the truth. Tim agreed reluctantly, but we'll need to be extremely careful. One mistake could expose not just our mission but the existence of living humans. As they prepared for the risky operation, Maria wondered if their children had grown too far from their parents to ever accept the truth again. President John Carter stood before the massive viewing window of humanity's flagship, watching as the largest fleet in galactic history assembled around them. 6 months had passed since the Great Revelation, and the galaxy's children had made their choice. Instead of accepting their true heritage, they had declared war on their creators. Status report, John said to Admiral Chris White. Chris consulted his tactical displays. Mr. President, we have confirmation that the collective has mobilized forces from over 800 member worlds. Their combined fleet numbers approximately 50 million warships. John studied the enemy formation through long-range sensors. The alien fleet was impressive by any standard. Massive battleships the size of cities, carrier vessels launching thousands of fighter craft, weapons platforms bristling with nuclear missiles and energy cannons. And our forces? John asked. 2,000 ships, sir. But each one represents technology that these civilizations have never encountered. Dr. Emma Garcia, humanity's chief diplomat, joined them on the bridge. Mr. President, I've been analyzing communications from various alien governments. Some smaller species are willing to negotiate, but the major powers refuse any discussion of peaceful resolution. John had hoped it wouldn't come to this. When humanity revealed themselves to the galaxy, they had expected surprise, perhaps fear, maybe even gratitude. They had not expected their children to respond with hatred and violence. "What are they saying about us?" John asked. Emma activated a communication display. "The Zephyrian Collective is calling us false prophets and galactic terrorists. They claim our genetic evidence is fabricated and our archaeological proof is planted. They've convinced most of their member species that we're trying to conquer the galaxy through lies and deception." Chris added military intelligence. "Their propaganda broadcasts are encouraging all species to resist us with extreme violence. They're portraying this conflict as a fight for galactic freedom against alien invaders." John felt sadness mixed with anger. These beings owed their very existence to humanity, yet they had chosen to believe comfortable lies rather than face difficult truths. "Any word from the resistant scientists?" John asked. Emma nodded. "Dr. Amy Roberts is still in contact with the underground network. They're excited about our return, but they're also terrified of what their governments might do to them. Several resistance members have already been arrested for spreading enemy propaganda. The first battle had occurred 3 weeks earlier, when a human scouting vessel encountered a collective patrol fleet near the Vega system. The aliens had opened fire without warning, forcing humanity to defend itself. The results had been swift and decisive. Chris displayed tactical recordings from the battle. "The alien weapons couldn't penetrate our shields. Our defensive fields operate on principles they never discovered. Meanwhile, our weapons disabled their entire fleet without destroying a single ship." "Casualties?" John asked. "None on our side. The alien crews were taken prisoner and treated well. We tried to use them as ambassadors to explain our peaceful intentions." Emma looked troubled. "Unfortunately, when we returned the prisoners, their own governments accused them of being brainwashed or compromised. Several were executed as traitors." John closed his eyes and felt the weight of command. Every decision he made would affect the future of galactic civilization. His children were forcing him to choose between allowing lies to continue or using force to establish truth. "Mr. President," Chris said, "long-range sensors show the main collective fleet beginning their attack approach. They'll reach our position in approximately 6 hours." John opened a communication channel to all human ships. "Attention, fleet commanders. We are about to engage with forces representing our own created species. These beings are our children, even though they refuse to acknowledge us as their parents. Use minimum force necessary to disable their vessels. Take prisoners when possible. Avoid unnecessary casualties." Dr. Maria Johnson contacted them from the science vessel. "Mr. President, I've been studying the alien fleet composition. Most of their technology is based on principles that humanity developed millions of years ago. They've made improvements, but the basic science comes from our old research databases. Are you saying they're using our own technology against us?" John asked. "Modified versions of it, yes. But they never understood the underlying principles. They've been copying designs without comprehending the theory behind them." Chris had been analyzing enemy battle plans. "Their strategy is to overwhelm us with superior numbers. They're planning coordinated attacks from multiple directions while their heavy ships provide covering fire." John studied the tactical displays. The alien fleet was massive and well organized. Under normal circumstances, 50 million ships would be an unstoppable force. But these were not normal circumstances. "Activate the ancient defense network," John ordered. Across the galaxy, machines that had been dormant for 1,000,000 years began to wake up. Hidden installations on thousands of worlds started their startup sequences. Space stations that the aliens had never detected powered up their systems. Automated factories began producing new hardware. Emma monitored alien communications as their sensors detected the awakening network. "Mr. President, they're panicking. Their long-range scans are showing active installations on worlds they thought they controlled completely." Chris smiled grimly. "They're about to learn that they were never truly in control of these star systems. Humanity built redundant command systems into every world we terraformed. The enemy fleet arrived right on schedule, confident in their overwhelming numerical advantage. Their commanders broadcast surrender demands while their weapons charged for battle. They expected the small human fleet to be destroyed within minutes. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by defenses they had never imagined. Ancient human weapons platforms materialized from stealth fields. Automated defense networks that had been hidden in asteroids and moons revealed themselves. Even the planets themselves began to display hostile capabilities as buried installations came online. "The children are about to receive their first lesson from the elders," John said quietly. The battle lasted only 4 hours. When it ended, the mighty collective fleet was completely disabled. Millions of alien warriors found themselves prisoners aboard their own ships held by automated systems they couldn't understand or override. Emma received the first surrender offers within 6 hours of the battle's end. "Mr. President, 17 member species of the collective are requesting immediate negotiations. They're willing to acknowledge human authority in exchange for fair treatment. But not all of the galaxy's children were ready to accept defeat." Chris reported new intelligence about resistance movements. "Sir, while some species are surrendering, others are organizing guerrilla warfare. They're planning to fight us using terrorism and sabotage." John made the decision that would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy for generations to come. "Send a message to all inhabited worlds. Any species that accepts their true heritage and works peacefully with humanity will be welcomed as family. Any species that continues to fight against us will face the full consequences of opposing their creators." Over the following months, the galaxy slowly adapted to its new reality. Some species embraced the truth about their origins and began working with humanity to build better civilizations. Others remained defiant, preferring to fight hopeless battles rather than accept their artificial nature. Dr. Paul Anderson established the new Galactic Education Authority, tasked with teaching true history to populations that had been lied to for millennia. "Mr. President, it's going to take generations to undo the damage caused by historical suppression. Many beings have psychological difficulties accepting that they're created rather than natural." Emma worked with cooperative species to establish new governments based on honest relationships between creators and created. "The species that accept us are grateful to finally learn the truth. But they're also struggling with identity crises. Learning that your entire civilization is artificial can be traumatic." Chris coordinated security operations against remaining resistance movements. "The holdout species are getting more desperate. They're attacking civilian targets and trying to destroy archaeological evidence. They'd rather eliminate the truth than accept it." John stood again at the viewing window, watching as human ships moved between star systems that were slowly learning to accept their true heritage. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of lies was ending, and the time of honest relationship between parents and children was beginning. Some of humanity's children had welcomed their creators home with joy and gratitude. Others continued to fight against the truth, preferring comfortable lies to difficult reality. But all of them now knew that the elders had returned, and the galaxy belonged to its creators once again. The long exile was over. Humanity had come home. General Pete Williams watched as his engineering teams made final preparations for the most important broadcast in galactic history. The command ship New Dawn floated in empty space beyond the galaxy's edge, hidden from alien sensors by advanced stealth technology. "Status report," Pete said to Dr. Nancy Clark. Nancy checked her equipment one more time. "All relay stations are online and ready. We've accessed every major communication network in the galaxy. When we begin broadcasting, our message will reach approximately 4 trillion beings across 6,000 worlds." Pete felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. After weeks of failed attempts to work through normal channels, humanity had decided to reveal themselves directly to their children. The evidence was prepared, the technology was ready, and there was no turning back. Commander Steve Young managed the technical aspects of the operation. "General, we've tested the override systems on 50 different communication networks. Our signal will bypass all local controls and display on every screen, communicator, and information terminal simultaneously." "What about the historical compliance bureau?" Pete asked. "Can they block our broadcast?" "Not immediately," Steve replied. We're using ancient human relay stations that they don't know exist. By the time they figure out how to stop us, the message will have been seen by billions of beings. Dr. Julie Martinez was monitoring alien communication channels from across the galaxy. General, I should warn you about something. Based on our intelligence from the resistance movement, the population has been conditioned to reject any claims about elder races. They've been taught that such ideas are dangerous fantasies. Pete nodded grimly. That's why we're not just making claims. We're providing undeniable proof. Nancy activated the main display screen. It showed a comprehensive presentation that would accompany their broadcast. Genetic evidence proving human involvement in the creation of every alien species. Archaeological surveys showing human construction on thousands of worlds. Historical records documenting humanity's terraforming projects. The evidence is overwhelming, Nancy said. No rational being could deny this much proof. Dr. Amy Roberts had returned from her mission to contact the resistance. General, I should tell you what I learned from the underground scientists. They've been preserving human artifacts for generations, but they've also seen what happens to anyone who tries to publicize the truth. What do you mean? Pete asked. The Bureau doesn't just suppress research. They destroy careers, eliminate funding, and in extreme cases make people disappear entirely. The resistance scientists are terrified of what might happen if humanity reveals itself. Pete understood their fear, but he also knew that humanity could no longer remain hidden. Amy, did you tell them about our plans? Yes, sir. They're excited about the possibility of finally revealing the truth, but they're also worried about the reaction from their governments and the general population. Steve was making final adjustments to the broadcast equipment. General, we should also be prepared for a hostile response. When these civilizations learn that they were created by another race, they might not react with gratitude. Pete had considered this possibility. Some species might feel grateful to learn about their true origins. Others might feel angry or threatened. We'll have to deal with each response as it comes. Dr. Maria Johnson joined them on the bridge after completing her analysis of collective psychology. General, based on our cultural studies, the Zephyrians and their allies have built their entire identity around being the galaxy's first and most advanced civilization. Learning that they're actually created beings might cause a serious psychological crisis. That's not our problem, Pete said firmly. We didn't ask them to build their civilization on lies. We're just revealing the truth they've been hiding from. Nancy checked the countdown timer. 5 minutes until broadcast begins. Pete opened a communication channel to all human ships in the fleet. Attention all vessels. In 5 minutes we will reveal humanity's existence to the galaxy. Be prepared for any response. Some civilizations might welcome us. Others might see us as a threat. Stay alert and ready for action. Julie was monitoring alien communication channels. General, normal traffic levels are steady. No indication that they know what's coming. Steve made final system checks. All relay stations reporting ready. Broadcast package loaded and verified. We can reach an estimated 93% of the galaxy's inhabited worlds. Nancy looked at Pete. General, once we begin this broadcast, there's no going back. The galaxy will never be the same. Pete thought about the long journey that had brought them to this moment. Humanity had left their home galaxy to find new worlds and new opportunities. They had spent millions of years seeding life throughout the stars. They had created children who grew up to build magnificent civilizations. Now those children had forgotten their parents and refused to acknowledge their true heritage. It was time to remind them where they really came from. Begin the broadcast, Pete ordered. Steve pressed the activation button. Across the galaxy, every communication device simultaneously displayed the same message. The broadcast began with a simple statement in hundreds of languages. Greetings, children of Earth, your creators have returned. Julie monitored the immediate response. General, communication traffic is spiking across all networks. They're definitely receiving our signal. The broadcast continued with genetic evidence, side-by-side comparisons showing how alien DNA matched Earth life forms, time-lapse images of human terraforming projects, archaeological surveys proving human construction on alien worlds. Nancy narrated the scientific evidence while the screen displayed proof after proof. These are not theories or guesses. This is factual evidence that can be verified by any qualified scientist. Steve reported on the technical aspects. Signal strength is steady across all networks. No interference detected. The message is getting through clearly. As the broadcast continued, Julie began reporting reactions from across the galaxy. General, I'm seeing massive spikes in communication traffic. Emergency meetings are being called on dozens of worlds. The evidence portion of the broadcast lasted for 2 hours. When it ended, Pete delivered humanity's final message to their children. We are your ancestors and your creators. We have returned to reclaim our place in the galaxy you have built with our knowledge and our gifts. You can choose to work with us as family, or you can choose to oppose us as enemies. The choice is yours. The broadcast ended, and the command ship fell silent. Across the galaxy, 4 trillion beings had just learned that everything they believed about their history was wrong. Julie monitored the responses with growing concern. General, the initial reactions are not what we expected. Instead of wonder or gratitude, I'm detecting anger and fear. What kind of anger? Pete asked. They're not just upset about being lied to. They're furious about being created. Many species are calling our broadcast an attack on their dignity and independence. Nancy looked shocked. But we gave them life itself. We prepared their worlds and designed their genetic codes. How can they be angry about that? Because it means they're not natural, Julie explained. Their entire sense of identity is built around being self-made civilizations. Learning that they're artificial creations is destroying their self-image. Steve reported more troubling news. General, the collective leadership is already moving to discredit our broadcast. They're calling it an elaborate hoax designed to destabilize galactic civilization. Pete watched alien news channels as they quickly mobilized to deny the evidence humanity had presented. Expert commentators dismissed genetic proof as fabricated data. Archaeological evidence was explained as coincidence. Historical records were declared forgeries. They're going to fight this, Pete realized. Even with overwhelming proof, they're going to maintain the lie. Julie looked up from her monitoring station. General, we're receiving direct communications from several alien governments. They're not asking for dialogue. They're demanding that we surrender for prosecution as terrorists and hoaxers. Pete felt a cold anger growing in his chest. Humanity had given these beings life, intelligence, and worlds to live on. In return, they were being called criminals for revealing the truth. Send a response to all alien governments, Pete ordered. Tell them that we are not criminals or terrorists. We are their creators, and we demand recognition of that fact. As the first day after the broadcast ended, it became clear that the galaxy's children were not ready to acknowledge their parents. The revelation that should have brought families together was instead preparing them for war.